center?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Whatever.
Where you come from.
So, Dan,
I will be on.
we're going to run this just like Graham Live.
Oh, or actually, no, I'll be right there.
Okay.
So where those two are, I'll just be right there.
Okay, awesome.
And that puts us in the start off the same time.
Sounds good.
I'm going to get it away because
It always messes it up.
Yeah,
So.
and then I'll
Probably-
see
got it under control.
Yeah. So I've done before.
I'm not. And we're gonna sit with this.
myself, and then I'll let Nate introduce himself before we get started. I grew up here in Terry Fox, played 4 years there, had the opportunity to have a scholarship to go to the University of Calgary where I graduated. And in 2015, I was drafted by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I played 4 years for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. This is my third year with the BC Lions, so 7 years total. And reason for me to be involved in this program is I care a lot about my community and I grew up here. So anything I could use my platform, which the BC Lions provide for me to come and talk to schools and spread the message of being more than a bystander, and most importantly, encouraging you guys to be leaders in your school or community, or if it's your football team or anything like that. So that's just a little bit about myself, and I'll let Nate go here.
Sure. Yeah, thanks again for having us. Thanks for that warm introduction. My name is Nathan Rourke. I play quarterback for the Lions. I wear number 12. I was born out here in Victoria, but I grew up in Ontario. I had the opportunity to get a scholarship to Ohio University in the United States. COVID year, I got drafted in 2020, so that was the year that we didn't get to play. So this is actually my second year. Last year was my first year with the Lions. And this is a program that as soon as I got on to BC and I got involved with the Lions, that I knew that I wanted to be a part of. My mom is a survivor of sexual abuse, so this is very close to home. I'll have a story again of how another story about how this kind of has impacted me in my life. But this is a very important topic for us to talk about. I'm glad to be here to have this discussion with you. And Suk and I are hoping that we can kind of talk to you guys about it too, have some audience participation so we can all continue to discuss this.
So thanks, Nate. Next up, we do have 2 videos. One's just an introduction of us on the field, and the second part of the video is with Jackson Katz and a little bit more about the presentation. So I'll let those videos play. Nothing. Yikes. No, it's okay. I'll have to read to this video at this point.
Yeah. Or just let it play. The
Yeah.
video does a good job setting the stage for everything.
Right.
It's just funny because like you have all these high-tech things and everything, but the
So
video
it
doesn't.
it's like an auxiliary cord, I think.
Well, the problem was that we came here and they didn't have a laptop for us.
Oh, I thought we brought our own.
No, we always go and they always have it set up. Somebody didn't read the email.
Yeah.
Do you know where this is from?
Yeah,
It
this
looks
is-
like Toronto, doesn't it?
No, it's Empire. So
It's the
at the
old-
time, BC Lions facility, the one downtown, was getting the roof restructured.
Yeah.
And this is near PN.
We win. In our house.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, sorry for the technical difficulties there, but here's the introduction to the video.
In our house, we win. In our house, we defend and protect each other.
I'm going to share with you a paradigm-shifting perspective on the issues of gender violence. They've been seen as women's issues that some good men help out with, but I have a problem with that frame, and I don't accept it. I don't see these as women's issues that some good men help out with. In fact, I'm going to argue that these are men's issues.
It's the third attack on campus in as many weeks.
This man did manage to get his hand up her skirt and rip at some of her clothing under her skirt and also punched her in the face.
3 counts of first-degree murder.
18-year-old Van Diest was beaten to death on the train tracks beside the trail.
An incident occurred in my own house that I had to deal with, and fortunately for me, I was old enough that I could deal with it on my mother's behalf. And you know, and there's times that's not the case at all, right?
That's why we've partnered up with the Ending Violence Association of BC to begin to create a positive change in this province.
In British Columbia, there are over 1,000 physical or sexual assaults against women every week.
Being more than a bystander isn't a superhero approach. Countering violence with more violence isn't the answer.
Tell him to stop. Distract him. Change the subject. Talk about it with him later. Talk about it with her. Make sure she's okay. Tell someone else. These are just a few ways to stand up and be more than a bystander. Break the silence on violence against women.
There's so many men who care deeply about these issues, but caring deeply is not enough. We need more men with the guts, with the courage, with the strength, with the moral integrity to break our complicit silence and challenge each other and stand with women, not against them.
All right, so you guys saw the the introduction to the video. So next up, we have our leadership slide, and I'll ask for some crowd interaction here, and I'll ask some of you, what do you guys think good qualities of a leader are? Yep, right here. Loyalty. Yeah, loyalty, that's a great one. Anybody else? Yeah, up there in the blue. Reliable, yep. Right here. Courage, yeah, that's a big one. And I agree with that one the most is courage. So Nate and I understand that leadership's not, the easiest thing, or being a leader is not the easiest thing, and it's not going to be the loudest person in the room. But Nate and I have had great leaders on and off the field, and now that we have taken the role as leaders on our team, we understand that success in life and as well as in football is determined by teamwork and leadership. Leadership takes smart decision making, accountability, courage, like you said, and it isn't always easy. So we're here to encourage you guys to be leaders. So throughout the slide, you'll see a lot more things related to leadership here. So next up.
And Sook, if I might just interject there. The suggestions that you guys gave, which were great, none of them involved physical characteristics, did they, right? So it doesn't mean that you have to be the biggest or the strongest person to be a leader, right? They're not physical traits in terms of being leadership, right? So.
Right, I agree with that totally. So next up we have gender-based violence. So what is gender-based violence? This is a big problem that affects children and teens within all cultures and communities. And as you guys saw in the intro video from Jackson Katz, women have been the leaders in this field, strengthening laws against abuse and sexual violence and providing programs that serve women and children who have experienced abuse. We need more men to stand with women and speak up about this issue. That's why Nate and I are using our platform that the Lions provide as young professional athletes to come to high schools and simply spread this message and bring more awareness to this topic, and hopefully encourage you guys to be more than a bystander when you see some of these things we're going to talk about in this presentation. So next up, we have a help is available slide. If this discussion brings up issues that you or a friend are dealing with, the BC Lions have partnered with EVA BC, and there are anti-violence counselors here at any point during or after the presentation. And we will email handouts that list local resources that you can contact for more help or for more information. And I encourage you guys to take down this information of Jody Burrell. She works with Chilliwack Community Services, and we'll also bring this slide back up again. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it today because she is dealing with a court incident related to this topic we're talking about today. But we encourage you guys to take our information down, whether you need it or whether a friend needs it. And, contacting professionals when it's tough to talk about these situations, I believe is the right thing to do. And they're equipped with the right tools to help you guys. So, yeah, we'll provide this information again. And we have a public service announcement.
Right now, many of us are helping others handle huge challenges during COVID-19. Will you join us? During global crises like this one, domestic violence, sexual assault, and child abuse all increase. If you sense something is wrong at the home of a friend or loved one, ask them privately if they're okay, and let them know that help is available. Be more than a bystander. Break the silence on gender-based violence. We all have a role to play.
All right, so just like Travis said there in that video, I know we're getting to the end of this pandemic, but during COVID-19, like he said, cases of abuse kind of skyrocketed, right? So it's even more prevalent to be able to talk to you guys about this today. We'll get into some statistics right now, all right? So these statistics are not here to scare you. They're just kind of help you put your mind around kind of things, grasp what we're kind of talking about here, grasp the severity of it a little bit. So first of all, we'll look at 1 in 3 Canadian women are victims of sexual assault, right? So if you can think of 3 women in your life that are important to you, right? The fact that one of them statistically in Canada is going to be a victim of sexual assault, that's pretty staggering, right? We'll look here at the next 2. Girls or women are 4 times more likely to have been sexually assaulted, and 8 in 10 police-reported dating violence crimes are girls or women who are reporting them, right? So one of the questions we get all the time about when we do these presentations, Sook and I, is what about men? Aren't men victims of abuse as well? And the answer to that is yes, absolutely, they are affected by that. But we know by statistics that women are the ones who are usually the victims, and it's usually men who are doing the violence, right? So we're not saying that this is exclusive to women, but We know that this issue has been completely one-sided, and like Jackson Katz said in that intro video, this is an issue that we believe that men have to take a little bit more responsibility for our actions, our thoughts, our behaviors, in stopping this and breaking the cycle, which is something that Suk will get into for later on in the presentation. We'll look more into some disproportionately impacted groups. We look at 59% of sexual minority, so non-heterosexual Canadians, and 59% of transgender and gender diverse. So that's 59% of our friends from the LGBTQ plus community, 55% of Indigenous women and men, 50% of women with disabilities, so that's 1 in 2, right? 34% of girls or young women aged 15 to 24, and 27% of visible minority and immigrant women have experienced physical or sexual assault. Right, so pretty staggering numbers there. The one that I want to kind of circle back to is this 34%, right? So this is kind of the demographic that we're speaking to today, right? 15 to 24. You either, whether you're in high school or you're going to be in the college level, right? 1 in 3, again, we talked about that 1 in 3 percentage, right? So that's pretty staggering, right? Even more relevant to be able to talk about these things and have a discussion about how we can prevent these things and look out for one another. So we'll get into some definitions at this point. Definitions are important because we need to be able to distinguish what we're looking at so that we know how to effectively intervene. So we'll just kind of define a couple of things so we're all on the same page. First of all, we'll look at dating violence. Daryl, thank you. Relationship and dating violence. So this is any type of abuse that can come in a multitude of different ways. The things that you might think about right off the bat are sexual and physical violence. Those are the things that might jump off right off the bat when you think about abuse. But there's also psychological or emotional or even financial abuse. They're all different types of abuse that can be traumatic in their own very different ways. What is financial abuse, you might be thinking? That's just basically someone, an example of that would be restricting someone from using a certain bank account or restricting the type of money that they're using each week or year or whatever it might be, just being very manipulative in that way. All these types of abuse just involve power. Someone is using power and coercion over someone else to kind of manipulate them in their own certain way. And again, very different type of forms of abuse, but can be very, very dramatic equally in the same way. We'll look here now at criminal harassment and stalking. So this is a criminal offense when you repeatedly follow someone, communicate with them to the point where they feel fear for their own safety. That is something that we need to be aware of, especially during this time, this modern era of being online, especially during the pandemic. I know that we were doing our Zoom calls and we were online, and that's the way that we had to meet, right? So being online gives people a false sense of anonymity sometimes, and so they might say or do something that they might not do face-to-face, right? So it's even more important to be aware of the type of things that we're doing online and making sure that we are doing the right things for each other and keeping each other safe. All right, so now what we'll do is we'll look at the difference between sexual harassment and sexual assault. So sexual assault tends to be a little bit easier to define. However, sexual harassment can be any number of things. Sexual harassment in its essence, any unwanted sexual communication or attention that is offensive, intimidating, or humiliating for the victim. Example of this could be a unwanted joke or comment that is sexual in nature. And this can extend even far as, physically intimidating someone with your presence, right? So not physically touching them, but standing over them in a way to try to dominate them in some way, that can be considered sexual assault. Sexual harassment. Sexual assault is when there's touching, when there's physical contact. And the key word there is without their consent. So this is something that we really want to make sure that we talk about and we really get down with you all. Because this is really, really important. Consent, I'm sure, hopefully, I'm just kind of, this is something that is new, isn't new for you all. Hopefully this is something that you've heard about before. Only yes means yes, right? So any type of time you're going into a sexual activity with somebody else, you need to have a voluntary agreement that you're on the same page, you're on board with everything that you're doing. The key things, 3 things with consent: it has to be ongoing, has to be enthusiastic, and it can be withdrawn at any time, right? So, and it's not valid, the last thing is that it's not valid if that person is unconscious, right? So ongoing, this means that during the beginning, the middle, or the end, it can be withdrawn. Someone can change, they could go in and say, yes, I want to do this. At some point, they can change that. That's okay, that's their right to do so, okay? If the person cannot say yes, then they are not saying yes. So that's a kind of a simple thing for me to say right there, but some people get that misunderstood. If someone is unconscious, they cannot say yes, and so they are not saying yes. It goes the other way too. If the offender is drunk, this cannot be used as a defense to any charge. So whatever type of activity you're getting into, whether if you're intoxicated in some way, you cannot use that as an excuse if you've negatively impacted somebody in some way. I hope that makes sense. And if it doesn't, that's okay. We're going to watch a little video here that kind of simplifies everything. It's going to use the analogy of sexual consent as tea. So hopefully we can kind of just talk about that and make it a little bit more simpler for you all.
If you're still struggling with consent, just imagine instead of initiating sex, you're making them a cup of tea. You say, hey, would you like a cup of tea? And they go, oh my God, I would love a cup of tea, thank you. Then you know they want a cup of tea. If you say, hey, would you like a cup of tea? And they're like, I'm not really sure. Then you could make them a cup of tea, or not, but be aware they might not drink it. And if they don't drink it, then, and this is the important part, don't make them drink it. Just because you made it doesn't mean you are entitled to watch them drink it. And if they say no thank you, then don't make them tea. At all. Just don't make them tea. Don't make them drink tea. Don't get annoyed at them for not wanting tea. They just don't want tea, okay? They might say, yes, please, that's kind of you. And then when the tea arrives, they actually don't want the tea at all. Sure, that's kind of annoying as you've gone to all the effort of making the tea, but they remain under no obligation to drink the tea. They did want tea, now they don't. Some people change their mind in the time that it takes to boil the kettle, brew the tea, and add the milk. And it's okay for people to change their mind. And you are still not entitled to watch them drink it. And if they're unconscious, don't make them tea. Unconscious people don't want tea. And they can't answer the question, do you want tea? Because they're unconscious. Okay, maybe they were conscious when you asked them if they wanted tea. And they said yes. But in the time it took you to boil the kettle, brew the tea, and add the milk, they are now unconscious. You should just put the tea down. Make sure the unconscious person is safe. And this is the important part again. Don't make them drink the tea. They said yes then, sure, but unconscious people don't want tea. If someone said yes to tea, started drinking it, and then passed out before they'd finished it, don't keep on pouring it down their throat. Take the tea away. Make sure they're safe, because unconscious people don't want tea. Trust me on this. If someone said yes to tea around your house last Saturday, that doesn't mean they want you to make them tea all the time. They don't want you to come around to their place unexpectedly and make them tea and force them to drink it going, but you wanted tea last week. Or to wake up to find you pouring tea down their throat going, but you wanted tea last night. But if you can understand how completely ludicrous it is to force people to have tea when they don't want tea, and you're able to understand when people don't want tea, then how hard is it to understand it when it comes to sex? Whether it's tea or sex, consent is everything. And on that note, I'm going to go make myself a cup of tea.
A little bit of a silly video, but some people have a hard time grasping that subject. So just to summarize, consent is freely given, it's enthusiastic, and it's ongoing.
All right, thanks, Nate. So next up we have this picture here, and I'll begin by asking some of you, what do you think is going on in this picture? Yeah, a person's drowning, a person seems like they need help. So what could we do in this situation if you were to come across this? What would you do? What would you feel comfortable doing to help this person? Yeah, call 911 if you can't swim. I'm not a good swimmer, so I would probably call a lifeguard or call 911. Anybody else? Yeah, you could jump in if you're comfortable swimming, but if you're not, we don't want to put two people in danger. And if we could maybe throw them a life jacket or throw them a tube to reel them in. Any other options? Yeah, you could probably ask them if they want help, but I'm sure they need help in this situation. But one thing I do want to say is no one in the group said we would just do nothing and walk away. So why do we do nothing when it comes to gender-based violence? So what does this all mean? What can we do? What is being more than a bystander? So the bystander approach, a bystander is a person who sees or knows someone who is either acting abusively or being abused and does nothing. Abuse isn't just physical or sexual abuse. It can also be inappropriate or cruel jokes, sexist comments, treating girls as objects, cyberbullying, catcalls, and etc. So one thing Nathan touched a little bit on was cyberbullying. I know we have our phones on us a lot and they do a lot of good for us, but being behind a keyboard, you can still harass someone. You can still send unwanted texts, unwanted pictures, or send pictures that someone maybe felt comfortable sharing with you and you would decide to, maybe send them to your friends. That does count as harassment as well. So just be very cautious on how we're using social media platforms, how we're texting, and how we're communicating with each other. So next up, we have abuse takes place on a continuum. This pyramid or triangle, I feel is very important. It represents how things can escalate if we don't break the cycle. So I want to start at the bottom where it says sexist, homophobic, racist jokes, problematic language, objectification, which can lead to traditional roles, glass ceilings, rigid gender-based stereotypes, which then can lead to harassment threats, verbal abuse, which could lead to rape, sexual assault, physical, emotional, and financial abuse. And at the top, being very drastic, and it could lead into someone losing their life or someone, causing harm to themselves. But I know the top is very drastic and an outcome none of us want. So that's why I want to focus back on the bottom here. And this is where the leadership thing comes in. So in order for us to not let this continue to develop, we need to break the cycle right here. And why I feel the bottom is very important is because we might come across these things more occasionally than we want. So racist jokes, problematic language, objectification. So if you're hearing these things at school, I encourage you to be a leader and try to stop it right there. Break the cycle, because if we allow this to grow, we might not be able to have enough time or enough resources to step in, and it might, it just continually gets worse. So I encourage you guys to be leaders. If you guys are hearing sexist, homophobic, racist jokes, problematic language, try to break the cycle right there and know that you're stopping it from continuing escalating to something that we can't control. So next up, key points. Everyone here can play a role in creating a safe and respectful environment for your school and community. It is not a superhero approach. So again, Nathan and I are here to simply relay the message, bring more attention to this program, be more than a bystander. We're not asking anyone to put themselves in harm's way or be a superhero in the context of this, but we do encourage you guys to help each other, be leaders. So if you're ever in a situation where you can't deal with something, it's a good thing to call a teacher, get a principal, call those helplines. So those are just some options, and we're going to go over some stuff right here about how to be more than a bystander when you don't know the person. So a few ways. This might be an incident in school where, not that you know everyone in school, you might not know a person getting harassed or bullied. So a good way to be more than a bystander, if you see something in your school going on and it's not one of your friends, you can refuse to join in. You can leave the person or group. As an example, if I didn't know Nate, something was going on with Nate, and I felt that, oh, Nate's in an uncomfortable position, I can speak to Nate and say, hey, are you okay? I can also say, if I'm comfortable enough to go to the person doing the harassing, saying, hey, leave them alone or leave her alone. And again, take action if there's a threat of immediate danger, call 911 or call for help. So next, a few ways to be more than a bystander when you do know the person. This could be a friend, a brother, a sister, a sibling, someone you have a good relationship with. And I'll use Nathan as an example. If something might be going on with Nate, I've known Nate for a couple years. I can say, hey, Nate, something seems to be going on. Can we talk? I care about you and I'm worried about you. Can I help? And if Nathan's not comfortable enough talking to me, he can use those support lines or those support workers that we have because, you know, it is a touchy subject, and not everyone is comfortable sharing an experience they're going through. So I'm no professional in this field at any means. I'm just relaying the message. So, and again, if Nate, being a friend of mine, was a person who was constituting violence or using bad words or actions, I could say, hey, your violence, that needs to stop. I can refer to people such as counselors, leaders, and support services. So next up, we have a PSA for myself.
Hi, I'm Suk Chung of the BC Lions. I'm proud to be a part of the Be More Than a Bystander partnership between the Lions and EVA BC. During times of world disasters, the World Health Organization reports that sexual assault and domestic violence increase. So we want you to be safe. And remember that help is a phone call away. Please reach out.
Okay, so during this part of the presentation...
Hi.
So you need to stop interrupting. At this part of the presentation, what I'd like to do is share a little bit of a personal story related to this subject. I mentioned that in my introduction. I grew up in Ontario. I grew up in a suburb of Toronto. I was very lucky growing up that I didn't get to see any instances of gender-based violence. I know that's not true for everyone. I was very lucky in that way. But as we have figured out with the pandemic, sometimes things are a little bit more real when it happens to us directly or happens to someone that we know, right? So I live in Maple Ridge now, and I was driving home from Surrey, and where our facilities are, and I was driving Maple Ridge in traffic. I was stopped at a red light, and as I looked over to the side of the road, I saw this couple, and I thought that they were in some kind of embrace. I thought it was some kind of PDA, so it kind of caught my eye a little bit. And as I looked closer, what I saw is that it wasn't any type of loving embrace. The man actually was shaking the woman by her shoulders. And so I was at a red light, and so as I looked over to the side, I kept watching, and I saw this man reel back and punch the woman right across the face. I honestly did not know what to do in that moment. I'd never seen anything like that. And I didn't know how to respond. I was in the left lane. This was happening on the right side of the road. So I did my best to try to turn around and try to follow this car so I could at least get a license plate so I could report it. But what I did see was that the woman ran away. The man got into a car, tried to follow her, tried to cut her off a couple of times. And by the time that I had caught up to them, I had to go a long ways to turn around and stuff. By the time I caught up to them, I saw that I wasn't going to be able to find a license plate. I was going to lose them. But what I did see was that the woman got back into the car with the man that just hit her across the face. So that story breaks my heart for a couple of reasons. The first one obviously being that the woman got back into the car with the man that just hit her across the face. But also, secondly, that the man was bold enough to do that in rush hour traffic in front of everyone in the middle of the day. I can only imagine what kind of things that woman is going through behind closed doors. I mentioned earlier that my mom is a survivor of sexual abuse. And one of the things that we know about gender-based violence is that oftentimes the abuse is done by someone who the victim knows. And so my mom, on 2 separate occasions, was it by some random stranger in the woods like we might see on movies? No, it was her boyfriend at the time, and it was her stepfather. So I say that only because that's how it's real for me, and that's why I wanted to be behind this message. But in another real way, we need to be able to understand, first of all, the severity of these issues, but also how do we get involved and how do we make sure that this stuff doesn't continue to happen. Just like Suk said, I think abuse takes place on a continuum, things escalate, and we're going to be asking you all in your communities, in your schools, to be able to get involved and make sure that this stuff doesn't keep happening and keep escalating and stuff like that. So we're going to look at a scenario right now. What we're going to do is we'll watch a video, we'll see a situation. This woman is going to be at a bus stop. I'm not sure how many of you take public transit, but this could very much happen to you. And then we're going to talk about what we might do in that situation. Okay.
No thanks, I'm alright.
Just trying to be friendly.
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, so I know it was dark, so it might not have been easy to see, but what's happening? We've got a woman waiting at a bus stop. She's going to be the bystander, right? We've got two people that are, seems like a man is going to try to talk to this woman. She's obviously uncomfortable, right? And this bystander was thinking about what she might do. So if you were in that person's shoes, you're waiting at the bus stop, this is what you see happening, what might you be thinking at this moment? Just what might you be thinking? Sorry? Try and help? Absolutely. Yep. Maybe how to help? How could I help? How could I get involved? Sure. Something else? So, do you want to help him out?
Yeah, definitely my thought process, if I saw something like this going on, first initial thought would be, what can I do to help? How do I get involved? You also could be, you know, shy a little bit or not wanting to step in right away and wondering if I step in, is it going to make things worse, or how do I go about the situation? So that would be my thought process.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those are definitely things. It's happening in a public space, right? So is it even my business? That could be one of your thoughts that are going across. Now, let's say that you've thought of those things. What might you do next? So what are some things that we could do to help the situation out? What are some things? Yes. Yeah, great. Really, really good. Yeah, so what I like about that is that she's interjecting, putting herself into the situation, saying to the victim that I'm here for you. You're diffusing the situation, right? You're taking her away from the person that could be doing the harassment. That's great. And then you're offering her support. I love that. Anything else?
Right here?
Try to distract the man.
Yeah,
that's a great option.
Yeah. What, just kind of follow up, what do you think, what would be a good distraction, do you think?
Talking about something.
Great, yeah, really good, right? Because again, we're asking you not to put yourself in harm's way, diffusing the situation just like that, asking him about, did you watch the March Madness game last night? Something like that, right? That could take his attention off the person that he might be harassing and onto you, right? Good. Anything else? Saw some people doing.
You can just position yourself in between them without saying a word.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, offer your presence. That was one of the things that Suk mentioned. Yeah. Good. Okay. Yeah, so let's, some good suggestions there. One of the things that I like that we didn't talk about, again with the drowning analogy that Suk talked about earlier, is that no one said nothing and do nothing, it's none of my business, right? So we're here, Suk and I are here today to tell you, yes, it is your business. It is acceptable to say, hey, maybe I'm not gonna do something immediately, but I'm gonna keep my eye on that, right? An eye on the situation, make sure it doesn't go up a level, right? That's perfectly fine. Making sure that we're aware of it and making sure that we're keeping an eye on it. That might be something that you could do. We talked about some other things, you know, interjecting yourself into the conversation, you know, walking up to them, asking if she's okay, making a more direct approach, right? Doing something that you're comfortable with and keeping yourself out of harm's way. Those are all acceptable answers. So very good. Thank you for sharing. We'll watch the rest of the video and see what the woman does in the video.
Excuse me? Do you know what time the bus arrives?
Should be any minute.
Great.
So kind of a combination of what we talked about, right? So she's distracting. She's not directly acknowledging what's going on, but she's distracting the potential abuser, the person doing the harassment. She's putting herself, offering her presence to the victim, right? And she's keeping herself out of harm's way, right? So that's a really good example of how to do that. So great, cool. So this is going to bring us to the end of the presentation. What we like to do now is thank our sponsors, the Government of British Columbia, EVA BC Tech, and BC Fed. We have some more resources. Daryl, if you go back a slide. There's some more resources on EVA's social media pages for more videos, more scenario videos. I don't know if teachers, students, you guys want to walk through those. Make sure that you can kind of talk about those things a little bit more. Those links are available to you. Like Sook mentioned earlier, we would have had a support worker with us today, but she wanted to make sure that we have her information up here just for you to take down. It'll also be emailed to the teachers who are involved in this presentation. As a resource, we just want to encourage you again to use that information if you or someone else that you know you feel like they need it. That is great. At this point, what we'd like to do is offer it up to questions, either about the presentation itself, football questions, related questions. Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
QR
I don't know
code.
about the phone situation here.
What?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you got it. But
I got it?
Yeah, you got
Okay, QR code. All this does is that it gives us a little bit of feedback on the presentation, helps us make it better. You can also get connected with us. You might get some swag, some tickets to the game potentially.
If you can't scan it right now, this will also be emailed out. And
Yeah,
you
that'll
guys
be
could
emailed out.
give us some feedback and give us an evaluation on how we could get better at our presentation and provide to get better at this. So.
Yeah, and then so as you're doing that, what we'll do is that we'll open it up for questions now. So again, it could be on the presentation itself, something that we need to clarify, or some football-related questions. Anything's kind of fair game at this point.
And if Josh can make his way up here, it'd be great.
Josh. I'm looking for a Josh.
Nothing. We're really thorough. That's good.
Do we have any questions?
Like are these people back there? Cool.
All
right. Well, thank you very much for having us. This was been our pleasure. It's been great.
How you doing, man? Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Do you want to just one sec, guys? Quick little picture here. So Josh is one of our football These guys have offered to do a breakout session with 30 or so people if you want to stay longer and have some time with them here to talk about the topic.
Yep.
We'll get into another scenario
Yeah.
and kind of talk about it in
And
more
talk
detail.
about
Small
another
groups.
scenario as a small group. So if you, again, thank you so much for these guys for coming to our school. Yay! And if you're interested in sticking around for another breakout scenario, maybe you can just make your way up here and just sit around on the stage. And otherwise, you can head back to your class. Oh, wait, sorry. Say what? Come on up here, guys. Sorry. Just real quick, guys, lunchtime, Not fine. Just
Okay, so guys, we had these amazing presenters come and speak to us about unfortunately very difficult situations, but it is a reality for some of us. And we want you all to know that while there's these amazing resources that are available in the community, there is lots of resources available for help here right at the school. So as you all know, we have our counseling team, that's myself, Ms. Goss, and Mr. Price, whose wife is currently having a baby, so he's a little busy. The best excuse he could come up with. So if you have any concerns around, please approach us. We also have our amazing youth care workers. We have Kat and Amber, right? And we are always available for you guys. You know where we are in the counseling space. And please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions or any concerns. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if you got a 3XL or a 2XL.